Imagine an ancient war orchestrated by a secret network of seers and priests. Could it be true? Hi, I'm Allie. I've had like 2 hours of sleep and a cat just hissed at a wall in my hallway for 10 minutes. So yeah, vibes are weird today.
And I'm Brianne. I also saw a cat today, on a mug. It did not hiss at the mug. Because mugs do not haunt houses, Allie.
You do not know that. Anyway, welcome to the Veil. Unsolved and Unbelievable. Okay, so check this out. Today we're doing the Calchas Protocol, a conspiracy behind the Trojan War. My theory is that a priestly network steered that whole saga, using omens like levers.
Wait. You invented a Bronze Age conspiracy. Sorry, not sorry, I am listening very closely now.
Back to the story. First, the basics. The Trojan War lives in Greek myth, set roughly in the late Bronze Age, around the 1200s to early 1100s BC. Some ancient calculations put it around 1194 to 1184 BC. It's Greeks against Troy near the Dardanelles, a coalition of kings under Agamemnon sailing to a wealthy citadel in Anatolia because Paris ran off with Helen. The Iliad covers only a slice, the 10th year, about 4 days and 2 nights, focusing on Achilles' rage after Agamemnon takes Briseis, the plague from Apollo, Patroclus' death, Hector's death, and Priam ransoming the body. No Trojan horse in that poem. That big scene shows up in other texts and later gets epic treatment in Virgil's Aeneid. The Odyssey is about Odysseus' 10-year trip home. Cyclops, Calypso, shipwrecks, that whole Odyssey. And there are lost or fragmentary epics that fill the gaps. Early stuff in the Cypria, the fall in the Little Iliad and Iliu Persis, the homecomings in the Nostoi, and even a sequel about Odysseus' son by Circe in the Telegony. Archaeology time. People have looked for Troy for ages. The site most scholars accept is Hisarlik in modern Turkey. Frank Calvert convinced Heinrich Schliemann in 1868 to dig there, and they found multiple layers. Troy 7 is often tied to a late Bronze Age destruction. Today, with more digs and clay tablet evidence from the region, Hisarlik as Troy is widely accepted, though whether the war happened as told is still debated.
And not to be a buzzkill, but the poems are poetry, so we have vibes and values, not a battlefield report. Still, I am here for your grand theory.
All right, moving on. My theory. The Calchas Protocol. I think a loosely connected priestly network tuned the war to a divine script. Zeus in myth wants to thin out the heroic age, right? Reduce overpopulation, cut down the demigod lineages. So how do you make mortal kings do that? You choreograph their rituals and omens so they think the gods want very specific moves. Take Aulus. The fleet gathers and you get that serpent omen. A snake eats a sparrow and 9 chicks then turns to stone. Calchas interprets it as Troy falling in the 10th year. Boom. You just bought a decade of commitment from 1,000 nervous captains. Then the wind dies. No sailing until Artemis is appeased. Depending on the version, that is Iphigenia sacrificed or swapped with a deer. Either way, the message is brutal and clear. Priests control the go or no-go.
Or it is weather, and a priest reads weather as a sign because that is what priests do. It is not a secret ops room with wind dials, Allie.
Here's what went down when I chased this. I went to the bay people identify with as Aulis. The water felt like held breath. Total stillness. The temple keeper pointed out a smoke-blackened relief of that serpent and birds. There was an old channel carved at the base to carry off libations. You could see how an omen was not just a story but a ritual machine. Pour the offering, sing the reading, and the fleet stays or sails.
Nice image. But a carved channel is not a secret cabal. It is just how you drain the altar so you do not get sticky feet.
In years 1 to 9, the Greeks are not in a full siege. Thucydides even says they lacked the money to ring the place. So they raid around the Troad and farm between seasons while Troy keeps getting help from inland allies. That creates a perfect opening for seers to time attacks and retreats with omens. You do not have the logistics to force victory. You have to win through ritual timing and morale management. Another episode. Telephus. The Greeks misland in Mysia. Achilles wounds Telephus. Then an oracle says only the wounding spear can heal him. So they literally take scrapings from Achilles' spear to cure the wound, and in return, Telephus shows them the way to Troy. That is not just magic, that is seers controlling access to cures, to navigation, to who has to show up where.
Or it is a mythic riddle to explain why an enemy becomes a guide. You do not need a network. You need a good storyteller and a bronze file.
Late in the war, the prophecies stack like a checklist. Bring Heracles' bow with Philoctetes. Fetch Pelops' bones. Steal the Palladium, the sacred statue of Athena that protects the city. Bring in Neoptolemus, Achilles' son. Each item drags in a new player or a sacred object. War as liturgy. Bow, bones, boy, idol. Check, 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 check. And the finish. The wooden horse. Epius builds it with Athena's guidance. Chinon lies. The Trojans treat it like a sacred offering and drag it in. Laocoon and his sons die by sea serpents when he warns them. Cassandra screams truth and is ignored. The horse works not just as a trick, but because the ritual frame overrules common sense. The seers flipped the city's piety against itself.
You have to say it. The fully detailed horse is not in the Iliad. It is in later summaries and then gets immortalized by Virgil, which screams evolving tradition, not a single clandestine playbook.
After the sack, Greek sacrilege at the altars triggers divine revenge across the Nostoi. Ajax the Lesser assaults Cassandra at Athena's statue and later drowns. Agamemnon gets home and is murdered. Diomedes faces wrecks and hostile landings. Nestor is basically the only one who sails smooth. It looks like a moral economy enforced by omens and punishments. Step wrong and the sea eats you. And do not forget Palamedes. He calls out deceit, gets framed and killed. Then his dad Nauplius uses false beacons at Cape Caphereus to wreck ships in revenge. Information control equals mass casualties. Ancient psyops. I went out to that headland and locals still talk about strange lights and fog. I am telling you, patterns repeat.
Call BS on ghost lights as evidence, but fair play on the story. Look, from my lane, psychology, humans crave pattern. When you have scattered myths, different poets and city cults pushing their own relics, you end up with a jigsaw that looks coordinated after the fact. Narrative fallacy. Apophenia. You see a checklist because the tradition loves sacred tokens. Historically, the big picture is messy. The war's historicity is still debated. We do have the site at Hisarlik, sure, we have indications of conflicts in the region, but the Iliad is art. Thucydides even says the Greeks could not blockade Troy completely, which explains the long raids and back and forth without invoking a priestly switchboard. And the variants matter. Iphigenia is sacrificed or swapped for a deer, or whisked away. Achilles dies from a guided arrow or in a temple ambush tied to Polyxena. Helen is literally a phantom in some versions. The number of guys inside the horse varies wildly. That is not a smooth conspiracy, that is divergent storytelling across centuries. Plus the catalogue of ships. Some read it as a Bronze Age roster, others say it is a poetic construction. If even the head count is contested, the idea that the same covert clergy nudged every king from Crete to Ithaca in lockstep feels, ambitious.
I hear you, but the inconsistencies could be camouflage, or regional nodes of the same impulse. You do not need one grandmaster if priestly elites share methods. At Aulis, you ration wins until a price is paid. During the war, you release prophecies and stages to pull in needed people and relics. At the end, you label a commando raid as a votive to override debate. Same playbook, different hands.
Or it is exactly what happens when you fight a long, under-resourced campaign. You rely on seers because uncertainty is terrifying. Leaders want omens because it outsources blame. If it goes wrong, blame Apollo. If it goes right, hail Athena. The moralized nostoi are tragedy's way of saying, do not be a jerk to the gods or your wife will stab you in the bath. Not an enforcement arm.
But Zeus's motive to clear the heroic age is baked in. That cosmic population reset explains the mass death. The protocol is the human layer that makes it happen. Calchas reads the serpent and everyone nods. 10 years locked. Telephus gets healed by the same spear. You bind an enemy with ritual debt. Heracles' bow, Pelops' bones, the palladium. You move sacred objects like chess pieces. Then sacrilege at the Sat guarantees divine storms. It is a closed loop.
Counter. The Zeus wants a cull line is mythic theodicy. It tells you why bad things happen. The rest is strategic necessity plus poetic flourish. The Greeks could not starve Troy, so they raided and then tricked their way in. That tracks with Thucydides. The post-war wrecks and murders are morality plays. Different fates for different heroes because it makes great theatre and warns audiences to behave at the altar and at home.
So, let me get this straight. You will buy a modern medical military cover-up, but you will not give me a Bronze Age priest network nudging kings with bird omens and wind strikes.
Conspiracy alert. I pick my battles. This one reads like culture making sense of chaos. Gorgeous, but not coordinated. Still, your Owlie's story gave me chills. I will give you that.
Back to the facts. Whether or not anyone pulled strings, the war's outline is clear in the tradition. Achilles' withdrawal nearly breaks the Greeks. Patroclus dies. Achilles returns. Hector falls. Priam begs for the body. Outside the Iliad, Amazon Penthesilea arrives and dies. Memnon arrives and dies. Achilles dies. Odysseus wins the armor. Ajax the Greater goes mad and dies. Finally, the horse goes in. The city burns. Priam dies at the altar. The royal line ends. And Aeneas escapes to start the Roman mythic chain.
The Trojans and Greeks talk like neighbours, share gods, even as the poem notes allied languages needing translation, which tells you how close and how wide that world was. I love that detail. Very human, very messy, very not coordinated by a single protocol. Sorry.
So, bigger question. How much of history is shaped by unseen forces versus the stories we tell to make it feel ordained? I think the unseen is louder than we admit.
I think stories are the loud force, we retrofit causation, but either way, narratives steer people, which is power, with or without gods.
Quick rec. If you want a smart tour through the archaeology and the myths, read In Search of the Trojan War by Michael Wood. It is great on Hisarlik, and how the literary and material worlds talk to each other.
Let's move on. Plans for the rest of the day. Are you actually going on a ghost hunt after invoking Zeus and Calchas all morning?
Yeah. Old lighthouse. The wind dies there sometimes. Obviously, I am bringing a recorder. If I see a wooden horse, I am running.
Text me if a serpent eats 9 sparrows. Otherwise, go home before the false beacons start, yeah.
Thanks for listening. Question everything, trust your gut, and maybe keep an eye on the omens. We will see you next time.